Hey guys, welcome back. Now in this lecture, let us talk about Python and answer one of the most common question. Is Python growth a bubble or a real deal? So it's been 2 years that Python hype is spreading like fire. It's now over industry as well as university. Universities has adopted Python as their first language. It replaced C language and now Python is the first language for all upcoming developers, that is first year students. So you can understand the impact that Python is delivering over students. Not only this, according to Stack Overflow, Python is now the most followed as well as fastest growing language for 2 consecutive years. Also, Python recently overtakes JavaScript as one of the most queried language on Stack Overflow. So you can understand the impact that Python is delivering over the lives of programmer. One thing I need to talk about. Python is the first choice for all the newbie who are starting their programming career. Earlier, Java, PHP, these were the most common programming language for a newbie. Or universities used to approach C and C++ as their first language. And then they upgrade their students towards PHP and Java. But now Python is taking that position also. Now you might have a question regarding who is using Python. Python is currently famous among software developers, software engineers, mathematician, data analyst, scientist, accountant, network engineer. Everyone have their hands in Python. They are using it for scientific computing, web development, testing, automation, networking, text processing, image processing, working with databases, and there are a lot of other positions where Python is currently used. Coming back to our question, is it a bubble that will burst after a few years because it is just the hype that is created, or it is the real growth of this language, that's why people are using it? Now to answer this, I need to distribute them into 2 points. My first question will be what we can do with Python, and my second will be why this language is so popular. So the first biggest advantage you have with Python is the wide variety of field. If you learn Python, there are chances that you can enter different scope with specialization. Maybe you want to work with data analysts, maybe you want to get into the field of machine learning and artificial intelligence, or you want to work with some automation, write some script, or maybe develop a backend of a website, or for mobile application or desktop application, or maybe you want to make a career into testing or hacking. You can think of so many paths to get specialization with Python. Python is majorly popular because it is easy to learn, flexible, and the development into community. In the past 2 years, the development for open source project for Python just doubled. Now there are 200,000 different packages in Python ecosystem. And this is just because the community is growing in a positive direction. So this was one of the major important point that I wanted to convey, that you can do almost everything in a good specific manner with the help of Python. There are several frameworks that you can implement. There are several libraries that you might work with. Now the second question or the second doubt that people usually have is why Python is so popular. So here are a few specific reasons. The first thing is it is very easy with beginners, and also it can solve complex problem with fewer lines of code. If I take an example of loops, if I take an example of extraction, if I take an example of creating a script for automation, each and everything can be done with fewer lines of code in Python. Sometimes Python use only 1/10 line of code for creating a project. Now you can understand why the hype is still there in the industry. And the next thing is it's high level, it is always preferred with cross-platform, it has huge community and the ecosystem. So with high level I mean time and memory management, with cross-platform I mean how will it perform in Windows, Mac, Linux, it performs the same, and it has huge community of developers. If you have any doubt, if you have any requirement, you can jump on to Stack Overflow, GitHub, Bitbucket, check out different repositories, and you can see how open source projects and how other people are devoting and delivering towards the community. The fourth and the last thing is large ecosystem. So in last few years, Python libraries and framework are so well developed that to attempt a single problem, there are different approaches to speed up your process. This is one of the major reasons why people are connecting with Python. The community is huge and they are really supportive towards each other. So I hope now you understand that the multi-purpose use of Python and also being a beginner friendly language help Python to be one of the most hype and most popular language in the past few years. And the last thing that I want to discuss is the salary. Python developers usually get approx 120k in US and also a good decent salary in any part of the world. You can also realize the hype with machine learning, artificial intelligence, latest automation, scraping, and all the latest technologies. All are depending on Python. Also, before moving forward, let me tell you, a big chunk of code base for these unicorns is dependent on Python. If I talk about Facebook, over 21% of its resources are dependent on Python. If I talk about Instagram, it is completely dependent on Python as well as Django, which is one of the most popular backend framework on Python. Next is YouTube and Netflix. By this you can imagine the scale at which they are working. They are rendering millions of minutes of views every hour. Not only this, world's biggest question answer site Quora is also working on Python. So you can understand the growth of Python amongst developer as well as industry. So don't miss out Python. It is growing really fast for next couple of years. And remember, the growth is not a bubble. If community is working, if ecosystem is working towards the language, towards its growth, it's not a bubble. It's real deal. So you want to join the real deal? Don't miss out Python. Now, the motive of this lecture was to make you aware about Python before we start actual coding. So you are comfortable as well as confident with the decision to learn this language. I hope this lecture was helpful. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.